And I'm a member of the Truro Climate Action Committee. These information sessions are presented in collaboration with the Truro Public Library, and we'd like to thank the staff, especially Justine, who is recording the sessions. And also to Stop and Shop, who's been donating food. Greatly appreciated. Before we begin, I just want to say that next month, February 10th, Georgia Neal, who is our volunteer on the committee and a retired therapist, will be leading a session about mental and emotional health in the face of a climate crisis. The flyers over on the table. Please share them with others and sign up to receive announcements if you haven't already. Finally, and most importantly, if you are concerned about the climate crisis and want to channel your anxiety into action, please see me after this meeting. We are looking for people to join as members or as volunteers. A member can be a seasonal resident or a full-time resident. It doesn't matter. We meet twice a month and welcome the public to attend, just to comment or just to listen in as well. So the more, the merrier. But we are in need of members, so please consider that, or if you know anybody. Okay, tonight's session is about our transfer station. I've lived here in Truro for over 20 years and I still don't quite understand where things go and what happens to all the stuff I bring to the transfer station and where it gets to when it's going. So I thought there must be others who wonder this as well. So let me introduce you to tonight's speaker, Jarrod Cabral. Some of you may know, our DPW director, who can tell us everything we wanted to know but have had no time to ask.
All right, so what I want to start with is just a little bit about the basic operations of the transfer station and where you can find some of the documents that I get a lot of questions about, like single stream or what can you put in the swap shop, that sort of thing. So this is the town website, and I try to post everything I can on the transfer station site. Is that working? No.
It went to sleep.
Something's happening.
It's happening. Here we go.
Oh, it's not?
Yes,
All right.
it's on.
So anyway, if you go to the town website and you click on departments, look for the transfer station, click on that, and on your left-hand side, we've got all the general information you're going to need to be able to understand what you can bring there, what you can drop off the swap shop, and some important dates like hazardous waste collection days, which those days have already gone by, and those dates get updated when we find out what our new dates are going to be for next year. Food composting, we started that program a few years ago. It's residential only, and I'm just going to open this up for you. And this matches what we have down at the transfer station near the food compost area. We've partnered with a group of our towns on the Cape in Barnstable County, and we work with Watts Family Farm. So when you drop that off in those totes that are there, all that food waste goes to the town of Dennis. Watts Family Farm will go to Dennis, and they'll pick up for a number of Cape Downs for us all. The fees that they charge are minuscule to be able to do this. We average around $800 annual for the food waste. And what that does for us mostly is it takes this tonnage out of the waste stream. And it lowers the cost of solid waste that's going into the trailers. Again, this is just residential, not commercial at all. And just a note about the commercial, the restaurants, the hotels, or anything that's commercially generated, the tonnage amount for the threshold for that to be removed from the waste stream. If a facility is going to produce a ton of food waste per week is when the health department gets involved and they have to enforce that being separated from the waste stream. In Truro, as far as I know, that none of those businesses meet that threshold to remove any food waste from the waste stream right now today. What may happen in the future is that DEP will lower that threshold, and then more and more businesses that really don't generate that much food waste will have to start separating that food waste. And what we'll have to do is figure out how we're going to help them move their food waste, because right now we can't do that for commercial businesses in Truro. But the closer that comes, the more DEP talks about lowering that threshold, because then we're all focused on a way to be able to help out those businesses doing that. Let's see here. Recycling guidelines. So in 2019,
For the composting, we can use the compostable plastic bags, right?
so the compostable bags,
Yeah.
only those.
Blue-
They don't get rejected from Watts. They haven't yet,
Okay.
so they can be used. When they do, I'll let you know. Peter will let you know too.
Oh, Peter, can you stand up? Just introduce yourself.
Hi, everybody. Peter, I work at the transfer station. No, most of you from over there.
Peter's our new transfer station supervisor. Started with us 7 or 8 months ago, and
That's right.
has been promoted since then. So he's the guy. If you have complaints, don't call me. Just go to him. Our recycling guidelines. So 20 fall of 16, we converted to single stream. We got rid of separating all your recyclables and went for single stream. Now, what the goal was to do then was to increase your recycling, lower the solid waste tonnage. Well, in short, that worked completely. It was about a year transition, but recycling tonnage spiked, went way up to the roof. And as we did that, we saw solid waste tonnage come down over time. It came down so much that both tonnage streams actually reduced, but there was a lot of contributing factors for that to work out. A lot of things happened between the fall of 16 and 2020. The operation changed completely. Single stream, the picture you see on the screen there matches our sign that we have down there. But most importantly, this does coincide with some of the other communities on the Cape. We're all using the same guidelines. There's 2 or 3 of us that are using this, and that's encouraged by DEP. So from community to community, you go to a different transfer station, you're not getting a different message. We're all really trying to be uniform. And I think I work with Sandwich on this and some other Cape towns, and this is the flyer that we have out there. Most importantly though, the folks that we partnered with to take our single stream recycling to is E.L. Harvey. They got this before we contracted with them in the beginning to make sure that they would accept our recyclables as is, as you all see it, so our loads wouldn't get rejected. So this is down there, the sign is down there, we get the sign on our website, and our partners know what we're going to be delivering at their facility. And let's see. Swap shop eligibility criteria. So this sign matches what's inside the swap shop. And a lot of this came about when we rebuilt the swap shop. I think we had funding in 2019. So we wanted to make sure that we were close to what other communities were accepting into the swap shop. We don't really have the capacity to take furniture or any other bulky items because we just don't have the space. I'm going to talk about that a little bit later down the line when we get into permitting and what DEP expects of us. So this is posted. It's here on the website. It's uniform what we have in the swap shop. We can't take any more. We just don't have the capacity. The more we take, the more handling that requires, which means we have to have at least 1 more Pete and another truck driver. If we keep taking in more waste of any kind, it's just going to be, is it worth taking more? Do we want to increase the budget? Are we going to get permitting from DEP to do all of those things? And I'll talk a little bit more about DEP in a little bit. Volunteer swap shop packet. So if you're going to volunteer at the swap shop, we have hard copies down at the office. It's on the website, and this is for all boards and committees. We do have to do a query check. It really is a liability thing just to protect the town from anything, really. So we do the background check, we do the ethics every other year, just like staff members and all boards and committee members do. That's a quick explanation of why we have to do that, but it's the best thing to do for the town is get your background check done, do your ethics online, turn that certificate in, and you're good to go. And you can ask Pete all the questions you need to know where to find stuff on the website when you're down there. So, you may already know this, we swapped over to license plate recognition back in 2017, I think. So over that time span, we've been able to update the database, update the cameras, and some of the software. At least annually, we've been working it to make it easier for folks to track their license plate. So if you have any doubt on your expiration at all, you don't have your sticker anymore, obviously, to look at. You can check with staff at the transfer station, you can call me, but it's also on the transfer station website. So if you click on that icon, all you have to do is type in your plate and you'll get the expiration date for your car. If you want to check your buddy's car, just for the heck of it, and you catch it, you can plug his plate in there as well. If you think they're expired and you want to help keep with enforcement, you can go home and check the plate. That's how that system works. It's gotten better. The quality of the camera readings has gotten better over time. Much better now. We do make adjustments twice a year. The days get a little longer. We adjust the angles on the cameras. They get a little shorter. That's when we make adjustments for ourselves. The fee schedule. So the permit fees have not increased since FY14, I believe. I think it was July 1st, 2015, they had changed. They had increased. They haven't been touched since. We have gone through one contract with CMAS that increased our fees from $70 a ton for solid waste up to $90 a ton when we started. Now we're up to $104 a ton with CMAS. That contract expires next January 1st, and I'm going to do my best not to tweak the fees at all. I haven't touched them yet, but there's some other ways we can either generate revenue or look at some of the market prices on the other white goods that are below here. These are items that can't be thrown in the hopper. They're all in the waste man plan. We can't accept those. We accept them. We have other vendors who move them for us for a fee. This was updated in 2020. Some of these prices in the market have changed a little bit, but I do want to say overall, when we raise and appropriate at town meeting, last year our budget for the transfer station was $589,000. That was our budget to operate the transfer station. The revenue that came in last year was $383,000. $383,000 covers the entire operation with the exception of wages and benefits. That's pretty good, because wages and benefits take up about $192,000 of that $589,000. So we're covering all of your solid waste, all your drop-offs, all the white goods, everything it takes to run the operation with the exception of wages. That's 3 staff members. We have 2 full-time that are down there year-round, and we augment that with half of a truck driver's salary because we haul the solid waste from DPW personnel, and we have a custodian that in the summertime works 6 months there at the transfer station. So it's 3-time positions out of $192,000. And then some folks had asked me about an enterprise fund, but to have an enterprise fund like some transfer stations do, you have to be able to cover all of your expenses. That includes the 192, but also indirect support that's given to the transfer station by myself, by my office manager, by town accountant, finance director. There's a lot of time that goes into all of those pieces, and you have to account for their time to look at our numbers as well. All of that would have to be covered by revenue if you're going to have an enterprise fund. It has to cover $589 and then some. That means if you have an enterprise fund, you don't have to raise and appropriate that $589,000 at town meeting. It supports itself. We don't do that well with the revenue. We're not a huge transfer station like Harwich or Chatham even, or even Eastham. They're large enough and they take in a lot of solid waste from outside of Eastham or outside of Harwich. They make a profit and they don't really raise and appropriate at their town meetings. Eastham may, I'm not sure if they were ready to transfer over to an enterprise fund just yet. I think they were working on that, but this is not something that we would be able to do here. Designation forms. This has a little bit to do with permitting. So if you have someone coming to your home and they're visiting, or your son's from college and they're a homeowner of record, you can fill out a designation form for them. So they can get one of your 3 permits. The beach and rec folks do the same thing for beach permits. We do the same thing for your transfer station permits. So all we need on there is a homeowner of record or a trustee's signature, printed name, and the folks that are going to get that permit, and you're all set. When you guys upload your registration, when you get your permits every year, or you upload one of these forms, we don't keep it. We look at it once during the approval process, and then over time it gets deleted out of the system because we just can't save that much data, and neither can our software developers, so we don't hang on to any documents. And there's just what you see when you buy over online, and you see that off our main website as well. Soon, you will not be able to buy your fire permits. I just want to announce that for Chief Collins. He's transitioning over to a different fire department specific online payment program. He won't be working with us on that, so that'll be going away. Otherwise, that's what your citizen-facing online program looks like. I want to touch on a little bit about what we see behind the counter when we approve your sale. So, when I come in the morning in the off season, I usually do most of the approvals. Staff at the transfer station does the approvals as well. So I'll go online and I'll look at what we have for orders. And you can see tonight, there's one order here that this order will expire tonight at 8 o'clock. And what happened was when they submitted their document or the registration, it wasn't correct. So instead of getting denied altogether and having to start the purchase process over, this gives him a chance to be able to see the email response that we got telling him to upload his registration. Because it's the same as when you do your over-counter sale, we want to mimic that process online. So when we go into the review process, this is what we see. This is what that screen looks like. We see your purchase history. We see the property type, which is important. Because for us in Truro, remember, we don't take any solid waste or recyclables or any items outside the boundaries of Truro. So the property type is important. That property type comes up, it'll say undeveloped land. That means there's no dwelling on that. So if you're trying to get a permit, even though you pay taxes in Truro, you don't have a dwelling, you're not producing solid waste or recycling inside the boundaries of Truro. So the attendant on the back end of that, like myself or Peter or the folks at the beach office in summertime doing over-the-counter sales, they'll see that and say, well, you're not eligible for a permit. You don't have a dwelling. Or it'll say multi-family dwelling, or they'll have multiple cottages on there. So when you have more than one cottage on there, each one of those cottages gets their own set of 3 permits. And we can tell by looking at the parcel type. And also we get the backup address, we get the email address when you purchase online. And that's another bank of data we get to hang on to, which is the email in case we need to reach out to anybody. Also the property type is important, and the history is important to us as well. So when I go down here, I can say approved, or I can send you a comment back on documents we might need to see. So a little bit about the governing documents for the transfer station. So the transfer station is governed by the Board of Health regulations. Those are also posted on the website, down at the bottom of the page. We're also governed by Mass General Law. Section 31, 31A, 31B, 150A of Mass General Law, but also Mass General Law 310, CMR 310, Section 19 for recycling and solid waste. So there's 3 different documents that helps us manage and drive the transfer station operation that we have to comply with. It promotes us trying to get our permits in order. So you're not the only ones that have to struggle and we get your permit. We have to monitor our permit annually. So we go through a third-party inspection annually. It's unannounced. Pete gets a visitor down there and he says, hey, I'm so-and-so from this consulting firm. I'm here to inspect your facility to make sure you're compliant with all 3 of those elements. Board of Health regulation, Mass General Law, and 310 CMR as well. So he goes down his checklist and he's not just inspecting the transfer station operations area. They do an inspection there, and they also do an inspection on the landfill. And there's about 300 pieces or so of criteria that we need to be compliant with. So we get our documents back, 1 report for the transfer station, 1 report for the landfill. And there's pages of criteria we need to be compliant with. Or it's essentially something you need to go and fix. If there's too many of that, you can actually be fined or closed. Prior to 2017, these weren't being done. You weren't getting your third-party inspections done. You didn't even have your waste bank compliance plan or your license or permit to operate prior to 2017. If you did, there was no record of it, and it had never been updated. Your waste bank compliance plan is essentially your permit, and it tells DEP exactly what you do for recycling, what you do for solid waste, who you partner with that removes all of your white goods. They want to know everything about you, and that's all in your licensing and permit to operate. Now, that gets updated every 4 years. That's mandated by DEP to do that. If you want to change it, you can. you can list, hey, we want to start taking demo or wood products. I get that question all the time. We don't want to drop off wood, we don't want to drop off some sheetrock or whatever. The transfer station's never taken any of that. If they did, they weren't supposed to. It's never been part of a permit anywhere that I can find. What I had found out in 2017, between 2017 and 20, was that in 98, 99, 2000, when the transfer station was originally capped as a landfill went away, you put in your hopper and you created your recycling area. And if I can bring up a picture of Google Earth here, I'll show you kind of what I'm talking about the cap. When you operate the landfill or the transfer station, you're not allowed to do any kind of operation on a landfill capped area. It's not permitted. There's a GCL liner underneath all of that soil that's in that dome. And what that does, it sheds the rainwater off of the garbage that's underneath. Because if the rainwater goes straight through there, you know what's happening to everything that's buried. Everything that's buried is getting into the water table if the water's driving that through. So that liner sheds the water and that drains into the drainage mechanisms that we have out there, which is a big stone swale in the back of the transfer station and a new catch basin system that we have up front. So all of that water sheds off. So the next time you go down there and it's pouring rain, all you got to do is look straight ahead at the single stream recycling sign and look at where the grass meets the asphalt. You'll see a river going off to the right-hand side into the catch basins. That's the GCL liner pitching that water off of the dome cap that is covering all of that solid waste.
Jarrod, is that what the inspectors are looking at?
So they look at every bit of the property there, and the criteria is, I think there's 90 or so pieces of criteria for the landfill we need to meet. Yeah.
I mean, it's stagnant, there's nothing going on.
So they need to make sure there's no ponding, there's no activity on the grass area, because you're not allowed to drive vehicles over that, although we got a permit. Part of our waste management plan is being able to drive over that for yard waste and storage of equipment only. It's very specific. So they are looking at the landfill and all the drainage components to that. That's what's important about the landfill and third-party inspection. And then for the transfer station operation, there's the third-party inspectors going online who wants to see our board health regulation. Want to make sure we're compliant with that as well as state agencies as well. They're looking at signage. They're looking at everything in there. They never ask questions about license plate recognition. Permitting is not too important with them. They do ask about, are you expanding the transfer station? You're a small facility. And then once that third-party inspector digs into the history, they realize we don't have the space to expand. And that has to do where the liner is located. So when you go to the transfer station and you drive over the scale and you get to that end of the scale, that GCL liner ends at where the scale is. And remember what I said, you're not allowed to operate anywhere where that GCL liner is present. And we found it while we were installing the scale, right at the edge of the scale. So when we capped it in 99, there was no engineering oversight, and it just happened to have been done by personnel here. And when you cap a landfill, the EP will give you a checklist of things you have to do, elevation marks that you need to meet when you cover it. They need an exact location of where that liner is. It's something called an as-built. And there was an as-built done, but over the years, there were a lot of letters from DEP saying you're not compliant, and this is why. And this has to do with solar panels as well, and I'm going to talk about that a little bit. So this is your recycling area. This is where we got the scale. So the liner is all this here. What we discovered, it actually comes from this corner and goes over here. Remember, you're not allowed to operate anything on a GCL liner when you cap a landfill. It was just kind of done by the town without permission from DEP or anyone. That goes for the cell tower as well. That was not permitted by the state. It was just permitted locally. No one knew about it, and so we got over that hurdle as well when we got our post-closure certification finally in 2020. So after hours of meetings with DEP and our consultants, we needed to kind of shrink this operation down a little bit to make it work, take the pressure off the liner, and not have any expansion in the operation. Now, the only way I think we can take demo or wood, which a lot of people ask about, is to make the case to DEP saying we're not really expanding the operation. When you guys go down to the transfer station, we have a container there where we put in mattresses that don't qualify for recycling. We put in your soft furniture like couches or chairs into a container with the mattresses, or the toilets go in that same container. Those are classified as bulky waste, not as demo. But it's a gray area with DEP. It can also be considered demo. When we bring our container, that container to East Stand, that goes in their demo can. And that gets recycled as demo. So I can make a case that we could accept demo in that same area. We're not technically expanding the operation. We are taking a little bit more in. So I haven't gotten that far in the conversation with the EP yet. But I'm interested to see what they're going to say on the estimates I give them, how much we would expect to see. So it's not a guarantee they'll allow us to take any wood products or any demo of any kind. So we're not supposed to tell you, hey, you can take your demo to East Stand. You just got to pay a $10 fee to get in the gate because it's for profit. We can't tell you to go to Paul Daniels Recycling Center because it's for profit. Folks want to know, but we can't post it. But if you want to ask Pete, he'll gladly tell you, hey, you can go to Orleans to get rid of all of that concrete or your sheetrock to Paul Daniels. We can't post it because it's a for-profit entity. That's why we don't do that. But on my website, there are some resources, and I'll show you those in a little bit. But for the landfill area, we finally got our post-closure certificate after we had rectified a lot of the problems that were done 99, 2000 timeframe, including the roadway. The roadway was not supposed to be installed. It goes over the worst possible area in the landfill, which is the highest point. When you drive over that road, get rid of your yard waste, there's a lot of holes there. Well, solid waste breaks down over time. And that's what you're seeing. And that's over the liner. So we had to demonstrate to DEP that we're not damaging the liner. So we had to do a number of test bits over the whole area as part of our post-closure process the second time around in 2019 or so when we finished it. So we got our post-closure certification. We are now allowed to do solar panels out there. The reason why we couldn't do it before is because you didn't have certification at DEP that says, yes, your landfill is closed. It's been closed since 2020 when we finally got our final document. We're good to go, you can install solar panels. What we've been discussing, and one of the Energy Committee guys is here tonight, what we've been discussing is what's the best thing to do. Do you want to do a land lease with a private entity and have them just pay a monthly fee to use the landfill to put out solar panels? We just collect revenue, we don't have to do any maintenance, we don't have to do anything. They take care of the permitting with DEP, and DEP knows this is coming. They know solar panels are out there, they're coming. Or do you want to have total ownership of it? 5 years ago, owning solar panels for municipality was just too expensive, not worth it. Just have somebody lease it, and you can collect a monthly fee. Today, there are so many tax rebates available to municipalities, it makes it worthwhile to own. The hard part is that initial construction cost, right? I'll have to bring that to town meeting along with the Energy Committee because I already warned them. I'm not going alone when we request construction fees for solar panels, and we want to be able to demonstrate the revenue stream that's going to come back to the town over time. And I asked a couple of our consultants about what's better to do, own or lease, what's happening these days. And it was a quick 20-minute conversation with one of our consultants that said, you know, it used to be a good thing just to do lease. Now it's a no-brainer, it's to own your solar panels because the revenue is so good that it's hard to say no to. But there's still a long conversation to have. You still got to get a consultant on board, and we're working on that now, especially with the Energy Committee. And then it's another conversation to have with Finance Committee, Finance Director on what the best thing is to do for the town, as well as the Board of Health. Because the Board of Health is the governing body of the transfer station. And they have a big say in what we do there. So that's a solar panel story. That's where we're at. A little bit about single stream. So we take our stuff to Yale Harvey, Westboro, soon to be Carver, Mass, right over the bridge, much shorter drive. They mechanically process all of that. And at the end of that mechanical processing piece, they do a lot by hand. They capture about 85%. 85% of what we bring them is recycled. And the cardboard that they get is domestically produced now. Domestically sold, we manufacture that here. In the past, everything was going to China. It was a great thing to do, less expensive, and they said no more. Between 16 and say 1920, the United States was just kind of ramping up their own manufacturing process. Today, cardboard can be manufactured here, reproduced in the boxes. E.L. Harvey does a lot of business domestically with cardboard. For paper, Indonesia takes a lot of their paper. So 85% of what E.L. Harvey is doing, a lot of that's going to Indonesia now. In the past, it also went to China. Plastic, domestic. This is a domestic market, manufacturing plastics, and that's what they've been doing with the plastics as well. And as far as our mattresses, we partner with Ace Mattress in Rhode Island. And there's 4 towns that go to Eastham to deposit mattresses. And the former Eastham DPW director got 4 of us together and he said, I have the space. If we're going to start recycling mattresses, why don't we just do a bid together? So we put a bid out together. We told the vendors that we wanted to be able to have a location for 4 towns to go to drop our mattresses off. They're for recycling. So that's set up in Eastham. We bring our mattresses to Eastham, drop our container, give our manifest to the folks in Eastham, and Ace comes up from Rhode Island, and they count the mattresses and load them up. If one of ours doesn't qualify for recycling, that goes in the demo can. In Eastham, we get a separate invoice for that. We get charged $10 a piece for the recycling from Ace. That's all they charge us, and we split the travel fee. You'll notice on our fee schedule, we charge $45 for a mattress and $45 for box spring. That's market price. I think it's a little less now. I think Eastham's even increasing their fee for residents. I think it's around $50 now for some of their mattresses. And they have a different fee schedule for some littler mattresses. But for us, it's a quicker process to have one fee. It's not confusing for the residents or the attendants to get that process done, and they can go back to practicing enforcement.
Hang on, Jim. It just
It's not
disappeared.
going out. Okay.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
Is there a video of what they do at?
There is, and you could go to the elharvey.com website, and they have a video, and they can show you, and they do tours, and they can show you their entire process. The newest facility they just purchased is in Carver. It's right down the street from CMAS, from where we take our solid waste. That's a brand new facility, maybe 3 years old. E.L. Harvey purchased New Bedford Waste. That's what it had been in the past. So we can take all Singer Stream right to the bridge area and Wareham Carver area. Much shorter drive. That's a brand new facility, and they do tours as well. And I can share that information with you.
It's just, it would be great, because this has always been my issue, is I really would love to see where it goes, what happens to it, and if there were a link.
There is, and I can't remember the link at all, the E.L. Harvey at the top of my head.
But we don't know who the company is, that's what I'm
Yeah.
saying, it would be great to kind of have access to it online.
Yeah, I can do that. I can share that information or put it on my website. That might help.
Just a thought.
Yeah. Okay, I can do that.
The same thing with the mattresses. It'd be interesting to know what happens to those mattresses.
So the wood in the metal in the mattress is what is recycled. So as long as by the time they get to Rhode Island and they get into the mattress, is what I'm told, if they still qualify, they'll recycle what metal and wood they can. The mandate from the state is 85% has to be recycled. That's a percentage from the state. That's what all the vendors are telling me. 85% of your material is recycled. And I thought it was funny because when I called them all a few weeks ago, 85% was the answer. That's why. So that's my answer to all of you. Solid waste obviously goes to CMAS, Cavanta. Like I said, our contract expires with them in January of next year. Our tonnage has dropped quite a bit since 2017. We saw a huge spike in 2020, 2021 by about 300 ton. Obviously, as during COVID, we had a whole group of folks living here year-round for at least 2 years. And this year, it's dropped back down over 300 ton. I haven't seen the month of December only brought us about 40 ton, and I've never seen that before in the 10 years I've been here. And as far back as we could go, we've never seen a December that only brought us 40 ton of solid waste. It's something I just can't explain. We have to look at the commercial tonnage to see if there's a drop in business, because we can do that now. We have the scale, we can get that number, delineate residential trash from commercial trash, and I can kind of figure it out from there. We can give the Board of Health an update at your next meeting, so I'll probably have some data for you. So that is solid waste.
And is there
Yeah, go ahead.
in solid waste, is there a way to go look,
Yeah, they all have links
I mean, are they,
to their operations, and they do tours.
and what happens to it, it gets burned?
It gets burned and turned into energy, and there's a calculation for that as well. Yep. That's what CMAS is doing, and It's interesting that when we redo our contract, that they will not give us a fixed ton dollar amount this time around. They want to do it based on the CPI index, which means it's going to fluctuate every year. And it's not something I'm too comfortable with, but we got the next 10 months to negotiate with them. I'm thinking a cap on the CPI so we don't see too much of an increase every year. But we got a long way to go. Last time we did a contract, it took about 8 months. And we don't have too many businesses to choose from. There's their neighbor down the street that's 5 minutes away. They'll take solid waste, and they already told me they're going to charge more per ton. There's Kinsella in Charlestown, which is way too far of a drive to go. And they won't return phone calls anyway. So when it came to recycling and solid waste a few years ago, trying to do a contract, Kinsella would just never return any phone calls to us. So we went stuck with CMAS the last time. They've never turned us away. There's never been a breakdown. We get a lot of breakdowns at Provincetown now. We get breakdowns at Provincetown at least 2-3 times a year, and we wind up taking solid waste from them. And that breakdown does happen in Carver at the other Gail Harvey facility. So XL Recycling takes our metal. That's another revenue stream for us. That's included in the $383,000 revenue. All of the metal, we average anywhere between $1,500 and $2,000 per trailer load, and we drop that off. We get about anywhere from $18,000 a year to $21,000 a year in metal revenue, and that price fluctuates by the time every month. And I get email updates from our vendor and another vendor that we occasionally go to just to hit the market right at the highest price. So there's no contracts for recycling metal at all, and all of that is sold domestically as well. And we never get a rejected trailer at all from them. If they get a car, we've done cars before, they just invoice us separately for the tires that are on there. They deduct a certain dollar amount per tire off the total tonnage. That's really all they do for that. Like I said, East Ham, I've already mentioned, they take our soft furniture and our mattresses and any demo waste that we pick up around town. That also goes to East Ham. They're a little bit more expensive than driving way off Cape to get rid of demo, but I get to keep that staff member in town. They're not gone all day driving. We save on fuel. We pay a little more in tonnage just to go to East Ham, so it just makes more sense to stick with East Ham for now. Propane tanks, oil, all of that gets recycled domestically here. Motor oil and filters. Filters as well get recycled. We've been working with Sin Oil for years. That market is really, really hard to work with. There's very few folks that will take it, and none of them are really very reliable. Pete knows this. I think everybody that's worked at the transfer station knows that Sin Oil isn't the most reliable when they're trying to come empty that big tank of oil we have down there. We haven't had to actually cut anybody off. They've always shown up just in time. But Sin Oils, their prices really don't fluctuate much either. Recolor. So latex paint is recycled locally. A lot of the communities on the Cape are using the same company through Marshall County Outreach, made some arrangements with Recolor. The solid waste director at Bourne had taken the lead on recycling latex paint. All of us got a grant from DEP to work with Recolor to get rid of our latex paint at a very, very low price. So as long as we can keep our latex paint from freezing, they'll take it, and it's very little money for us to recycle the latex paint. You all can go to the transfer station and take the latex paint as well. That's embedded in the Board of Health regulation. So just in case you wanted latex paint, you can always ask Pete where to look. Where can I find the latex paint? We do have some. I have no idea what kind of conditions it's in, but you do have the authority or the option to go ahead and look at what latex paint we have. But we do box it up 3 to 4 times a year, and we go to dentists with that latex paint. Textiles, a lot of you have probably seen the clothing trailer down there. It's another county outreach hooked us up with a company called Bay State Textiles. They take just about everything. They even take carpet, so as long as you cut it up small enough, it can go in that trailer. Shoes, flip-flops, mismatched shoes, they can all go in that trailer. That takes in a little bit of revenue for us, maybe $600 a year. We get paid by the ton out of that trailer. Really not a lot, but again, it's not going in the waste stream. That's the biggest idea behind that. Online sales I talked about a little bit. So revenue, I talked about demo, and if we were going to start to accept demo, we would have to come up with a way to charge a fee. it's too dangerous just to weigh your car when you come through, because you get rid of your demo after you get off the scale, and you have to get back on the scale to weigh out into incoming traffic. I'd have to get your car weighed once a year to get an empty tare weight on it. That would be another way to do it, but I think that would be too problematic for you, because you're going to have your trash in there, probably some of your recyclables you have to weigh out anyway. Your tare weight's not going to be the same when you have trash in there. When you take your tare weight, your car's empty. You're just sitting in it. You got nothing. So there's another idea of charging we're coming up with a different permit, just a one-time permit that you can purchase to get ready for your demo. That's another thought I've had. I'm open to any ideas on how to charge for demo. I know that if I start accepting demo, someone's going to say to me, aren't you supposed to be charging a fee for that? I'm not saying it's the Board of Health, but I will hear it from another board member on another board about revenue. That's where I'm thinking we could come up with some revenue for the transfer station would be through collecting some of the demo. As far as the fee for a permit, I'm really not quite sure yet. It really depends on the amount we anticipate taking in and what it costs to get it to East End. What goes into figuring that cost out is the labor it takes to load that container onto a truck. How many people, how long does that take, what's that man hour or staff hour add up to? Diesel fuel to East End and back, depreciation on the vehicle per mile, and per mile cost of fuel, and the staff hour that it takes to get to and from East End. All of those factors play into taking in that amount of demo. And that's how we calculate everything for solid waste recycling and all of our other travels we do for everything that has to leave the transfer station. I think that's it. I'm open to questions. I can get into more detail about tonnage and what we looked at in 2016 when we transitioned into single stream, but I can answer anything.
Can I just ask, what's been have we gotten feedback from the single stream people? Is there a way to improve what we do, or is
Oh, good question. So we haven't changed our fee from E.L. Harvey hasn't changed since 2020. Prior to China saying no more recyclables, single stream was $40 a ton. That was great. Single stream was doing great. Solid waste was kind of coming down. The plan was working. I was getting nervous because I saw solid waste kind of creeping up that first year. I thought the town manager was crazy because solid waste was creeping up. People had to relearn how to recycle. Prior to single stream, your total on recycling was 280 ton. Prior to single stream. Today, we're about 470 ton or so average on single stream annually. COVID, we were in 550 area. That was kind of like a one-off those first 2 years of COVID. We're typically right around 450 ton, up from 280 prior to single stream. And like I said, solid waste had come down due to a lot to do with changing the Board of Health regulation and practicing enforcement. Once China said no more, that $40 a ton amount went from 40 up to 80 that first year to 90, and then we settled in at 95. And once we got to 95, it's never gone up. In talking to the reps at E.L. Harvey, they said, well, look, we charge some municipalities $120 a ton for single stream. And part of that reasoning is that you want to get a lot in these trailers, right, to make it worthwhile to make a trip to tip your trailer. So municipalities were running over the recycling and cramming that into their trailer. They were destroying it, either with a machine or a loader or whatever. And that product can't be recycled. That turns into solid waste. That's not 85% getting recycled. When that truck goes from another community, goes to E.L. Harvey, they tip it, it's destroyed, it goes to the conveyor. They're actually measuring and monitoring what communities are producing. And our fee hasn't moved, and they like the products that we're producing. What I can say is that when you throw anything into the single stream hopper, just make sure it's clean. And no pizza boxes. It just has to be clean.
no pizza box?
No pizza boxes. It's got to be clean and really not destroyed completely, because it will make it to the conveyor, and they turn that into their solid waste, and that goes on a rail car, and they partner with another entity, I think in Virginia, and that's where they tip their solid waste.
No pizza boxes because it still has pizza in it?
Yeah, any food residue you want to really clean off.
You know, and live in East End, we can bring greasy pizza bites.
Yeah, it's not something we don't accept it.
Yeah, but you
it's
don't
not on
have
our
single
flyer.
stream, do you?
I don't know.
I
Do we have
think East
single
Hamp's
stream in
not
East Ham?
single
I don't think you're single stream. I've been here, I go to your transfer station just because it's 2 seconds from my house. I live in South Wellfleet. It's a huge facility. Yeah, you're not single stream. Your cardboard is separated. A lot of folks in the beginning of switching over to single stream said, well, why not just keep selling cardboard? But it just isn't worth it. I think when I looked at our cardboard numbers, we were making a total of 31 trips just for cardboard in a 5-ton container, and amount received to the town for doing that was $11,000 in profit. When you factored in staff hour associated with that, the fuel, and the vehicle depreciation into that, you're really only making $4,100 per year with all that moving of one product up and down the Cape. But when you add in glass being separated, and then you add in plastics, you're really not making anything. It added up in 16, it added up to 56 loads of all of those little streams of recycling at 5 ton per load. When we switch to single stream, we have that larger hopper, we have a larger trailer. There's almost no handling anymore of any of the recycling, just making sure that we have them all open and accessible to everybody. And we're able to just commit as much as we can to enforcement. Not only that, we don't have to have 3 folks down there full time in the summertime anymore. There's only 2 people there. And what that allowed us to do was to take that one position that used to be there as a third body and use that person in the wintertime as a custodian. So now we provide custodian services on the weekends to police, library, and the school with that person. So it's not going to waste. We're actually providing more services in town. That position is currently vacant. There will be an advertisement coming out soon. The person that was in that position is now working with Peter at the transfer station. Go ahead, you first.
Could you talk some about recycling plastic? Does it matter what the number is? Does it matter what the color is? Is it really all recycled?
So when in doubt, I would just check the sign that's down there in the website, put it in the hopper. I asked the same question at E.L. Harvey last week, and they said just when in doubt, put it in a single stream. If we flag your trailer, we'll let you know. But we've never had any rejection, even for bulky plastics. That's not on there, but I've seen them in the trailer, and we've never had a rejection from one of our trailers because of that.
And we know that that company really is recycling it all?
They're saying 85% of what we take up there, and that's their answer.
So in other words, if our load is 80% recyclable, will be rejected?
No,
No?
they'll charge us more money for what they take out of there for solid waste if it's below 85%. And they'll send us a fee. I had a truck driver a long time ago. He must not have gotten a lot of sleep, and he took our single stream trailer to CMAS because he thought it was trash.
Oh, jeez.
I got a letter like a week later, and I'm like, who did that? And I saw the date, I had to go back, and all right, I knew who that was. And when you go to the transfer station now, you'll see big yellow letters on the concrete wall, trash, recycling, so they know which trailer to take.
So what happened to it?
They accepted it, and they sent us a fee, a $50 fine, and we've never had a problem like that before, so that was really about
But
it.
they burned it.
Yes, yeah, that was our truck driver going to the wrong facility. Never had before. Go ahead, I think you have a
So what happens to the food waste?
Food waste goes to Watts Family Farm. They reproduce that back into compost, and I think the town of Chatham buys it back from them because they bag it and they sell it at the transfer station.
And the 85% recycled material.
Yep.
It's recycled into products, it's not turned into daily cover,
Into products.
and we know this.
Yeah, that's what Yale Harvey's telling me about what we bring to them. Yeah.
Because daily cover is a product,
Okay.
which is just another way of turning it into trash and dumping it.
Now, what they're saying is that they have a market for producing products for it.
And what happens to the sludge from the burn facility?
Oh, I don't know. The ash goes into a landfill. And CMAS owns multiple landfills and other transfer stations. and they take their ash and they go to a transfer station with it or to a landfill with it. And for us, if they had to tell us to go to another transfer station, if they were at max capacity on one weekend, we would wind up going to, I think we would go out to Worcester to the landfill there. That's in our contract with CMAS, but they own multiple facilities, and that's where they take their ash. And that's all permitted by DEP too, so they're monitored just as much as we are. Go ahead, Tracy.
My question is, so it costs a little under $600,000 to operate a transfer station,
Yeah.
stated earlier. And the revenue that comes in is about in the high 300,000, and that excludes salaries. So does that include sticker sales or
Yeah,
sales,
that's
that
everything.
revenue?
Yep, and our purchasing and sales system that I showed you guys earlier, I pull all of our revenue out of that because it's all in one spot, with the exception of metal and the clothing trailer. Those are the only two items I don't have in there, so I pulled out that data today just for the past year. And I looked at our warrant from last year to say, all right, what did I budget last year? And it was $589, and all of that revenue is permit sales, 3 different types of permits. It's all of your white goods, and it's the commercial haulers that come to see us. That's Nauset Disposals, M.A. Frazier, Jimmy Roderick. Those folks are in that 383,000. For the commercial haulers alone, they bring in or last year is 115,000 commercial haulers. That's the Jimmy Rodericks and M.A. Fraziers. That's the revenue they generate for us. The permits, the annual permits, your first annual, your $100 annual permit brings us 188,000. That was last year's number for your first annual permit. And then we break it out into your second annual permit and your third annual permit. And those numbers are all separate. And that was our revenue from last year. And the wages are 192,000 of that 589.
So the other half of my conversation is, so for our upcoming special town meeting that's projected to be in May, or
Yep.
scheduled to be in May, there's an article in the warrant for the senior pass program.
Yep.
So I'm not gonna hold you to anything, this is just a general conversation, but I just thought it was a good venue to bring this up. So if that were to pass, and I know that it's a very labor-intensive project for the town hall staff and yourself to work through those numbers to see how much it would cost if that program were to be, excuse me, voted in. So on one hand, we would be missing quite a bit of revenue considering the demographics of the town of Truro. And how we even regulate that is, detail we are gonna figure out down the road.
Yeah.
But we can anticipate no more of that revenue to help offset the operation of the transfer station. So then the question is posed, how are we gonna pay for that? So our tax rate would need to raise and appropriate. So our tax rate will go up. So I just think it's really good information while we're having this conversation
That's correct. So
for us to think
if we
about.
eliminate about $150,000 in permitting revenue, somewhere around there, maybe a little more, then that money still has to be paid for through your taxes. We have to raise and appropriate that every year. There's some different ways we've talked about amongst staff on how to do it, how to give that first annual permit free for somebody over the age of 50. But then, what if you come in the door and it's your husband and he's 59 and he buys that first annual permit for $100? Your next annual permit's only $25. If you're 60, you're only getting that $25 permit. So another way to do that would be to have a voucher. You've got a $100 voucher. So when you come in, if you buy your permit, you've used up $25 of that $100 voucher. But how do we track that in the software system? How does the attendant behind the counter know when to initiate that? And how do the folks at the transfer station or myself? I mean, I would know because I'll be part of putting it all together, and so would Pete. But when we have teenagers at the beach office that are behind that counter and shaking, getting yelled at, I don't know what you're talking about. So there's that to come through, and how do we track the voucher, if we're gonna do something like a voucher, or if it's just gonna be a flat, your first annual only, that's still gonna create some problems with the software, with the attendants who rotate every year. So Damien, who's in charge of the beach office, would have to retrain some folks, and I pop in there during the year too. There's a lot to think about to make it work, but no matter what, you're gonna have to raise and appropriate the funds anyway at town meeting.
And I'm sorry. I know I've already
No,
said a lot. I was just going to say, and the warrant, the way the article is written right now, I'm pretty sure it's the same as it was in the fall, we didn't have the meeting. So I don't know how they're gonna change that actually, because it was date specific. So the petitioners had asked the Board of Health, and for those of you who don't know me for the Board of Health piece here, my name is Tracy Rose and I do sit on the Board of Health in Truro, I'm the current chair. But the petitioners had asked the Board of Health their opinion on the article and if we would support it. And we did not support the article, and it was for the simple fact that we just felt we needed more time, that town hall needed more time. We were more than happy to have a conversation, see if it was a situation that could happen. We weren't against having the conversation to see if it would work. But they wanted to have the conversation, have the town hall staff do all that analyzing, get the if it was approved, implement it by July 1st, this coming July 1st. And there was a third piece to it, I forget exactly, I'm buried in the detail, but the Board of Health and other citizens felt it was just way too much work to implement in like 6 months.
yeah, that's not something we can
Again,
do
it's
that
still
fast.
in the warrant, but I'm really happy that we're having this conversation because it is labor intensive, there is so much work that needs to be figured out and analyzed, so thank you.
So in our sales system, there's a lot of data that we see behind the scenes. We see the property type, we see your address, email, phone numbers, and a lot of that, your sales history. And when we take a deeper dive, we see how frequently some folks go to the transfer station. We see all of that information. The one thing that we can't link to our database is age. So I can't pull out an exact number. If I could do that, then I could have an exact number, but we have to deduct from our revenue. I figured it out, but we don't have that sort of data that can come from different sources in town hall to sync with our sales system. I don't think they capture that data either. I've had this conversation with our finance director, our assessing deputy, John Nahas, just about everybody in town I've talked to, where can I capture that data so somebody behind the counter knows this person is this age, without you're gonna have to show your driver's license, but we need to know that way in advance so we can actually budget appropriate for it and give you an accurate number of how much money won't be generated revenue. It's just not we don't capture that age. We don't have that data that we can grab and put it into this system. And I can just hit a button and say, $200,000. I can't do it. There's gotta be a way to do it, and I think to hold maybe probably not. It's gonna be an estimate based on what we feel, how many above 60-year-olds we have in town, and how many are actually buying permits. It's really hard to say. I would say about $150,000 lost in revenue, easily. Or so, somewhere around there. If we try a voucher program, it may be a little less than that.
Anything else?
Go ahead.
I've been always trying to visualize how all that mixed recycling stuff gets separated after it leaves us. It goes in a truck and
Yep.
it goes to where?
We dump it into a giant warehouse, goes into a loader machine, that goes into a hopper, down a conveyor. It gets sorted through the conveyor, and then right
And
at
who
the end,
sorts it? How does it get sorted?
it's sorted mechanically in the beginning.
That's
And
why the video, I think, would be.
Right, sort of mechanically in the beginning, and then at the end of that sorting line, there's actual folks sorting.
Actually,
fire.
people.
It's a combination.
Yep,
And that's
Whatever
on a
that-
video that we can see?
there is a film of that at the warehouse where E.L. Harvey, where we took our recycling.
So if we check into your website, eventually gets to.
I can put a link on my website and I can let you know, and you can share that with everybody. If they signed in, I don't know if you asked for their emails, because we can do it that way too. But it's something I can put on my website so folks can actually see it. Or I think E.L. Harvey has something on YouTube now too. So you can check out YouTube, throw in E.L. Harvey's name, and he's promoting his facilities. Or the family is
Do
anyway.
we dare look at it now? I don't know how long.
I don't know if it would come up. I'm not really sure. But once it goes down the conveyor, what doesn't make it down the conveyor does turn into solid waste. And that's why the other communities are out there trying to crush their single stream, their recycling up to get as much tonnage in their trailer as they can. But what they aren't realizing is that not a lot of that's going to get recycled the way it's supposed to. And they're going to pay more money for that. Good.
A suggestion and a question. Maybe it would be good this year when we all renew our permits that we have to enter our birthdays. And then you would automatically start collecting that data. And if they don't want to give it to you, then that's fine. Then they don't qualify.
Maybe,
And
but collecting that data would take longer.
Yeah.
It would take a couple of years only because everyone expires at different times now. I was the genius that said, hey, it's active from the day that you purchase it, rather than having it based on a fiscal year. So your permit's active from the day you buy it for 1 year. So it would take a couple of years to get that data, and then it would be validated with their license at the counter.
So my question is that I've always felt that if I pay $100 and I can dump everything I want, I really have no incentive to recycle. I have no incentive to compost. I have no incentive to do any of that because I can just throw as much in the hopper as I want. I know years back, and I don't know how long ago it was, but a lot of towns you have to buy bags. And you buy the bag,
Yeah.
and that's what you throw in the hopper. So if I generate 10 times as much trash as he does, I pay 10 times as much. But if I'm really good about it, I may pay less than he does.
So pay as you throw was really popular between 2010 and 2018 or so. China ruined all that because pay as you throw was attractive to municipalities because people were going to recycle a lot more because it's cheaper than solid waste. Now it's about the same. It's about the same to recycle as it is to tip a solid waste trailer. So pay as you throw, there's almost no benefit to it anymore. We may recycle more, but for us to move that single stream is almost as much as solid waste is now per ton. So the incentive is really not there as much as it used to be. That's pay as you throw. So if you're buying a bag, a certain size bag, yeah, even the modified versions of pay as you throw, which I think Wealth is, the incentive isn't really there. Because we're going to recycle all of what you bring, but it's still going to cost us almost as much as it is for us to move solid waste. There's only $5 difference in tonnage. And if we were going to go to a pay-as-you-throw, the problem is for Truro, where are we going to sell the bags? Where are people going to go? I've heard talk of vending machines. Amazon, anybody can order anything from Amazon, certain size bags, certain color. There's different things we can do to make bags available, but it's not going to be as easy as it is, say, in Orleans to go buy a certain size bag. Or in Truro, everything's a little harder here and more expensive.
It's just more
Thank you.
plastic.
Could be more plastic. Go ahead.
I think you said this and I didn't catch it, so some of the stuff that gets recycled is recycled locally in the US, is that true with the plastic?
Plastic is domestic. E.L. Harvey does it domestically. They sell it and it's manufactured here in the States. That's their answer. We're sticking to it, I think. Anything else?
Another question came just as a response, is there any way to educate, reinforce, prevent people from just throwing everything into the trash?
So that's why Pete and our other attendant are down there. Their education really is enforcement. And we have signs down there, but no one really reads all the signs. We try to keep the signs uniform to make it easier if you go to another community. DEP likes to see uniformity. We could put a sign in the hopper on the back wall. Do not throw XYZ into the hopper. I think a lot of people want to be compliant, but there's some folks that just don't want to do that.
Exactly.
Are plastic bags any? I mean,
Plastic bags, you don't wanna recycle those, not
I
supposed
know
to.
they're not supposed to go in, I just wondered if you have a lot of trouble with them. And
So it used to be a problem. Do you see a problem now, Pete, with plastic bags?
Some, it's not a huge problem, but there's definitely something going on. We catch most of them, or people catch themselves from them.
In the beginning, it was tough to get rid of the plastic bags, but it's gotten better. But again, Harvey has never called up or rejected any of our loads or sent us a letter saying, don't do that anymore, here's your $50 fine. We haven't had that problem with our vendor, and I think it has gotten better over time. Recycling is just more than doubled prior to what it was in 2016. Our solid waste hasn't really increased, it's decreased. And I've seen both streams together come down lower than what they used to be. This year is gonna be interesting, it's really low right now, I don't think I'm gonna see, I think it'll be a record low this year by the time July 1 rolls around on solid waste and recycling. It really tells you how many folks that have moved on after COVID. In 2020, the solid waste tonnage was the lowest we had seen in 8 years. And that's with March of 2020 when everything closed down. 21, it spiked up to 1,900 ton when we should have been around 1,630 or so tonnage. And recycling was way up there, almost 600 ton. But it's all come down, it's come way down this year. More than I expected, way more than I expected. But that's good, because we still need another truck driver, so if anybody has a Class A license, tell your friends.
I was going to just add, Venturo's really great, like we're all doing a great job. Good job, Truro.
Well,
We
the
don't
transfer
have
station
any
is for Truro residents.
Yes.
Yep.
I mean, you don't have any big issues, we're not getting fined every time we turn around, I mean, everybody really seems to be doing a superb job. Of course, with anything, you'll have a couple of rebels,
Yeah.
you know, people who really can't move, but for the most part, I think we should all pat ourselves on the back.
Yeah, we did complete our third-party inspection last week, and those will be at your meeting, you'll see the reports. But there were no discrepancies for the landfill area or the transfer station operation. We had 1 or 2 last year, no discrepancies the year before. But in the beginning, yeah, that's not a report I don't think I ever brought to you. It was pretty bad in 2017, 2018. But now there's no discrepancies with the operation or compliance with Mass General Law or anything having to do with recycling.
I thought I did understand though that in summer there's an awful lot of more solid waste and less, I mean.
There is.
Because I guess people have vacation.
So we have all the folks that fill their homes here. We see our tonnage for that 4-month time span is about 1,000 ton.
Right.
That's 1,000. We take in annually, we should only be taking in about 650 ton annually. So all of our tonnage really is coming in about 4.5 month time span. And that's all the house rentals. And those are your seasonal folks that are coming out and occupying the homes. Solid waste always picks up. The commercial haulers always pick up in the summertime, so the businesses are opening. Some of those folks that rent their homes use a commercial hauler, so they contract out. We see that solid waste come to the transfer station. They get spot checked. The guys fill out a document and they spot check those loads. During our third-party inspection, they review those documents on the inspections from our commercial haulers. And we found out we don't even have to do that anymore. Because we're a small facility, we don't generate X amount of tonnage that qualifies it, but we still want to do it as a best practice. Inspect the commercial haulers and file it with our third-party inspection.
The van that you mentioned that you can throw clothing in that's not suitable to give, what's the name of the truck?
Basic Textiles is a trailer right next to the swap truck.
And did the other one leave? There was one for Goodwill? For Goodwill or Sisters?
Yeah,
Brothers and Sisters?
so we use Bay State Textiles. There's only one entity that'll take our shoes, clothing, small pieces of carpet. Instead of having multiple down there, we only contract with the one instead of having multiple competing.
And how small does a carpet have to be?
Less than 4x4, and that flyer is also on the website, the transfer station.
And Jay just found there are several places that Harvey.
I found the E.L. Harvey video in a second. Yeah, it was easy. It's an 8-minute video.
And the school kids go for these things. You know, they always have one for kids too.
Physical tour of the have you ever been on the tour, Tara?
No, I've
You
been
should-
invited through Barnstable County, but I
You should do it, it's really
never go.
interesting.
That's relatively new in Westboro. It's newer in Carver, new facility.
We'll be looking for you.
I'll be there.
I have another question about the textile trailer. Is the signage on that clear? Because I think that there's people that think that that's where you're supposed to put your donations, that you really should,
Well, the
better stuff
trailer,
that should be going in
yeah,
the
the trailer is the
swap shop.
sign itself, I think. I think the trailer has all of its language on it itself.
Okay.
It really depends on the trailer, 'cause
Trailer.
they switch them out, some of them are labeled better than others. We could talk about more permanent signage, or it's on the website, really.
Are you supposed to bag the stuff that you chuck
Yes,
in there?
I want everything in bags.
Here, and I'll bring that up for you. I want to point out on our website too is down the bottom, we have some sites that we want people to take a look at. We may find a better way to promote these. It's Beyond the Bin. Just shows you locations where you can actually bring furniture to get recycled or give away, because we don't take it at the swap shop. The clothing trailer, that's the flyer here. That's what they take, which is just about everything. And I think down the bottom, the measurements of the carpets. So 2 foot by 4 foot carpet pieces. So if you're down there with your scissors, just stuff them in there, no one's gonna complain, but maybe cut it at home.
Yeah,
Might be a little
really cut it at home, put it in a bag, and then bring it, because they want like throw rugs, and not really like a cut up carpet,
Yeah.
but technically, once it gets to that size, we'll take it.
See, the top thing on that thing says support your local community, and that makes it sound like they're donating it to people.
They are a
That they're
for-profit, they're a
recycle.
for-profit business.
Yeah.
Yep, and we take in a little bit of revenue from them. But again, they take everything that's on that list. I've never really heard much from them, other than from what you guys say, but I never hear from them other than the checks they send occasionally.
And Tara, where do the books go?
Discover Books,
You know that box that's
yeah,
between the fabric and the
they get
software?
recycled, and Discover Books does partner with most of us on the Cape, and I've never got the end of their story actually with what they're doing with the books. If they're quality books, they go back out into the cycle.
And what happens to stuff that's been in the swap shop for a year, 2 years?
Well, Swap Shop is run by volunteers. Staff does go in there and clear it out occasionally with items that aren't supposed to be in there, and that turns into either something we can recycle, or it's solid waste, or it's demo. If it's been in it forever, but it's supposed to be in there, it's on the list, it can stay there. We're not really tracking the amount of time something's in there for. We're hoping the volunteers do that.
They do a really good job.
Yeah.
They clean
And
Making sure it's.
I don't think it's something we have to worry about much anymore. The older place had a lot of problems, and it was a bit of a liability.
Yeah.
But it's new, and it's the envy of a lot of towns right now. I know Wellesley's trying to rebuild theirs, and I sent them all the plans so they can actually not have to pay for an engineer plan, so they have ours to work off of.
It would be nice if we could crunch the numbers, because I bet if you crunch the numbers on this town meeting question, you're gonna pay as much in taxes as you're gonna save, considering everybody in Truro is 60 plus. I mean, it's a nice idea to save $100, but then just pay your taxes. To support something we have to have, but I don't, it's one of those, okay, I see the 100, I just don't see what I'm paying in taxes afterwards. Although most of those people seem to do, to seal money they pay in taxes, so.
I was just going to add, we're very grateful for all of our volunteers at the swap shop. And one of the main reasons it got closed a couple of years ago, we had many problems. But, the previous administration for the town as well just didn't see that it was a viable option to be paying a staff member at the hourly rate that they get paid to spend all day organizing the swap shop. So we really had to revamp our efforts down there, and the volunteers really have gotten together and run a really good program, and really don't bother the staff too much. Because they need to be taking care of us when we go in, right? Everybody wants to see somebody when they go into the transfer station.
A lot of folks that aren't registered, they're going to the swap shop. At least they're there to recycle or take something out.
It'd be lovely to have like a little coffee shop next door.
That's a Board of Health question.
Well, I think we tried to get the swap shop relocated over here on this property, thinking for the very reason, this is more social, you could have more coffee. But I don't know, there were people who were totally against that. We did, and the Board of Health did try to encourage that.
I did not object to that.
Yeah, I don't think that either, don't quote me on that, it just seemed more appropriate, but.
Yeah.
Any other questions?
Thank you.
Great, thank you so
Thank
much.
you very much.
Sure.
Really.